All right, welcome back to Problem Solver Politics. I am your host, Cardinellis, with Cody the Oracle.
Hey, everybody.
And today we got a really interesting video. We're going to start today's show talking about Andrew Yang's Medicare for All plan. I am going to quote myself. In the very first video that we made on Problem Solver Politics, it was, what is Andrew Yang and what is the freedom dividend? And do you remember, Cody, what my opening statement about my suppositions of Andrew Yang were?
No, it was a while ago.
It was a while ago, yes. I said, I think he's a Republican in sheep's clothing.
Yeah,
because there were so many conservative ideas in his platform, right? So now there's this big stir that's going on about Andrew Yang's Medicare for All proposal. I think it's because he's in tune enough with reality to realize it won't work. Others say that he's betraying the soundbite of Medicare for All. It's causing a hullabaloo. Cody, please tell us what's going on.
Yeah, well, right now, the big news of the day, as far as what actually happened, is Andrew Yang, I'll take you to his website first. Andrew Yang on his website actually released what is a new way forward for healthcare in America. It's currently just in the form of a blog post. I believe he's going to have this tailored as a full policy proposal on his website pretty soon. But for right now, I wanted to go through this and highlight a couple things here. Talks a lot about we had the wrong conversation on healthcare. Instead of addressing the underlying problems driving unaffordability and access, we as Democrats are spending all of our time arguing over who is the most zealous and wanting to cover Americans, over who has to wanting to do so longer, over who cares about the health of Americans, which, yes, that is the argument. So we'll get more into that in a second. Scrolling down, the thing, this is a long thing. We'll probably do a bigger video soon going through everything he's talking about in here. Right now, I want to hit on the 6 kind of pronged approach he's bringing. And there's a Politico article. It's got some kind of analysis, talks about some of the same stuff I wanted to bring up. And like I said, later on, we'll do a full look at this. But anyway, so he says, in order to fix a broken healthcare system, here is this 6-pronged approach, him being Andrew Yang. 1, control the cost of life-saving prescription drugs through negotiating drug prices using international referencing pricing, forced licensing, public manufacturing facilities, and importation. 2, invest in technologies to finally make health service functions efficiently and reduce waste by utilizing modernized services like telehealth and assistive technology supported by measures such as state licensing laws.
Okay.
So we have 3, change the incentive structure by offering flexibility to providers, prioritizing patients over paperwork, and increasing the supply of practitioners. 4, shift our focus in educating ourselves in preventative care and end-of-life care options. Interesting. Ensure crucial aspects of well-being, including mental health, care for people with disabilities, HIV/AIDS detection and treatment, reproductive health, maternal care, dental, everything basically, into comprehensive care for the 21st century, and then diminish the influence of lobbyists and special interests in the healthcare industry that make it nearly impossible to draft and pass meaningful healthcare reform.
Draining the swamp. All right. Okay.
It's funny you mentioned that, and I'm going to highlight this actually in the Politico article here. And I guess I'll do it right now. When Andrew Yang's talking about negotiating drug prices, it's really interesting to mention. Here we go. So the negotiations, the article I was referencing, quote, these negotiations would be shaped by international reference pricing, an idea supported by some Democrats, and earlier this year by...
Oh, no!
Well, here's the thing, though, because I think it's because that is one of the... You hear a lot of healthcare and medical arguments, right, that they go all over the place. But one that doesn't make a lot of sense is if other countries are legitimately paying the same companies less money for their drugs, that's a problem. Like that is legitimately a problem. If one company sells them for one price to one country and one to another, we should be able to negotiate with these companies saying, well, hold on a minute. Why are you selling it to other? Yeah.
Why does France get penicillin for $5 and we get it for 50?
Exactly. So like, I definitely see why that's something logical enough to be bipartisan, where it's like, what partisan divided? Like, I don't know. I think America should pay more, right? Like it should be, no, we should work out more fair pricing. So that was one thing I wanted to get to, we go into this, but they mentioned a little bit here at the top I want to talk about. So they say that, here we go. Healthcare has not been one of Yang's signature issues. Very weird that they say that because actually, I wasn't going to bring this up, but this is a really valid criticism of Andrew Yang. And when we're talking about this healthcare rollout, I wanted to bring up a lot of the, not the criticism necessarily, but I want to bring up, like I said, like you brought up the discussion around it. Like there's a lot of people with different takes on this. It's very fascinating. Again, I'm sorry it's taking a second. I actually had this pulled up and I closed it. I wasn't going to show it, but that is probably the best criticism of Andrew Yang I've heard ever. Is this Politico article mentions that healthcare has not been one of Yang's signature issues. Well,
even though it's in his top 3 on his website,
that's news to Andrew Yang. Medicare for All is one of his three big policies since the redesign to his website, which listed it in this function. Medicare for all has been number 2.
Well, hold on a second. This has been my thought.
But yeah, well, we'll take it. I want to take one more thing, and I want to get back to you on this because this is what I think is interesting. And we'll get into more of the policy stuff, but just because we're kind of already on this track, getting into some of the criticism. Now, I'm going to, anecdotally, me and Cardin, whenever we're on the street and we're interviewing people that are Yang supporters about Andrew Yang, we pretty much always wrap up the interview saying, so what's your favorite policy? Like, what's like a lot of people say Medicare for all. And while I know it's one of the big 3 things, I'd always say, it's interesting if Medicare for all is your policy, you'd pick Yang as your candidate because this author of this Politico piece didn't even really think of it as like a Yang policy. And myself included, I've always known that he's co-opted. I mean, I don't think it's in a negative way, but he's always said Medicare for all, but he's always leaned more towards, and they'll get through here what he's talking more about. It is
you and I are both,
it's not necessarily, it is not, and this is 100% true. Anyone who makes a statement, don't argue with them. This is not what Bernie Sanders considers to be Medicare. This is not what the kind of established progressive vision of M4A. What Yang is proposing is not it. And I do think the criticism of using Medicare for all, maybe, here's the thing though, nobody gets to just claim that. Nobody gets to say Medicare for all, this kind of nebulous term means this thing that I decided, right? So,
Democrats are in a tough position because Bernie Sanders literally said in the last debate, I'm the best candidate for Medicare for all because I wrote the damn bill. And it was hilarious because, he's got the ultimate street cred for the communist approach, the democratic socialist approach, whatever you want to say, nationalized medicine. And Democrats are in a tough spot now because they've created their own monster in the sense that they've consistently polled healthcare being the highest thing that people want to talk about. It's usually jobs and education, but recently it's a chicken and egg argument. We don't know if all of a sudden healthcare is at the top because we legitimately have a problem because the healthcare system has been broken for 50 years. We don't know if there's something unique about the past 2 or 3, but it's been showing up consistently a sliver above jobs and education. And we're not sure if it's because we drove so much policy discussion, now it's on the top of people's mind and it's polling higher, or if because there's a legitimate problem. So we got a chicken and egg argument with healthcare on the Democrat side of the aisle, actually in American politics in general. And you and I both said this when we first started covering Andrew Yang, Cody. We said there's 3 things. There were 3 video topics that we kind of avoided even because it was controversial in how we'd cover them because they didn't seem, quote, democratic. We would always say when people get a hold of the reality of his immigration policy, they'll realize he's practically tougher than Trump. When people get a hold of his gun control policy, he's going to get kicked out of the progressive club.
Well, no, his gun control policy was actually, he had to walk a lot of it back. A lot of it was just kind of ideas. Like, I reference this a lot, but he wanted to fine manufacturers $1 million of the weapon per
well, yeah.
But it's like, dude, like, there's weapons manufactured in China. Are we going to send him a bill? Like, it's not feasible.
Yeah, and then the third thing was we said, dude, everything he's said about Medicare for all really just kind of sounds like the public-private partnership system we got going on now with more euphemistic and flowery wording. And this idea that the government option will get so good that it will drive out private business and private healthcare. Yet there is no precedent of any program in the United States of America run by our government that has gotten so good it has eliminated the private version. Public education has not gotten so good that private schools had to shut their doors.
Let's get back to the topic here because I want to get back to this. And
I'm just saying he's in a pickle. Like, this is a pickle because
here's the thing. People who want the more progressive Medicare for all, single payer, not abolish, but essentially make obsolete any kind of private structure.
And that's not Yang's plan. He's getting kicked out of the club here.
But I want to highlight one thing. We'll go, and this is going to be controversial. But first of all, I want to get back to the actual substance here, so we can talk about the substance for 1 second before we get back into the abstract. So this is, again, I want to do a longer video, but Politico does a pretty good job of kind of highlighting a few things here. So we already mentioned they're saying, what would Yang's 6-pronged plan do here? So we mentioned already the adoption of a kind of gauging our prices against other nations.
Well, three of those 6 talking points were Republican talking points.
But let's keep going. So he also proposes making telehealth services more widely available,
Rock on.
licensing doctors to practice across state lines, and creating a rural broadband internet network to reach underserved communities. Again, I don't think anyone's going to object to that because it's not X enough. He also proposes paying physicians by salary instead of by fee-for-service basis, doing more to shield providers from malpractice lawsuits, and incentivizing doctors to work in rural areas by forgiving student loans. That's a very interesting student loan forgiveness path I haven't heard. It could be a little bit scary, the idea of the government saying, you have to do something for us. But at the same time, it's like...
Well, they do this with teachers. Yeah. My sister was going to get debt forgiveness for going up to Palmdale to work as an SLP there.
It makes more sense to say, well, like, I know that you took our money and graduated school, but how about we decide where you work and then you don't have to pay it back? Or you can decide where you work and pay it back. Choose one. That doesn't sound too crazy to me. But one more thing I want to get to, he said he's also would shift. This is what I actually care about more than anything. He wants to shift the focus of health systems to preventative care. Boost the coverage of mental health, care, vision, dental, reproductive, maternal. The idea being is if too many people are using our healthcare systems and it's straining them, which is true, perhaps we should be trying to work back. Like, obviously people that are already sick, we have to treat them. But like, how about people that are 10 years old right now? We incentivize them not needing to see a doctor every week and be on prescription medication for majority. I think there is ways to make the country healthier. It's got to start somewhere. I love the idea of a president saying, let's help the sick people now and then try to create less sick people in the future. Because that we can't just say let's help the sick people until the number of sick people just explodes until everyone's sick.
Well, we also have a very reactive.
Exactly. It's when you're always trying to catch up with all the people that are using the services, and you never take time to say, what things can we do to help people? I mean, the Obama administration, Michelle took a lot of flack for this because of the implementation. The idea of trying to help kids start eating healthier and living healthier at elementary school wasn't awful.
That's a noble idea.
The implementation got a little bit, because it's the government, and they're going to say, oh, this, that, and that. I mean, I always bring up, anyway, I don't want to get too off topic.
And it kind of turned into fat shaming, but.
Exactly. But the idea of a government program doing that, I've always been on board with. So anyway, they go to how would it work here? Yang's plans a combination of executive and regulatory actions he would take as president. He pledges to work with Congress on passing legislation and promises to pressure the healthcare industry to make reforms. These tactics in combination, he argues, would reduce high healthcare costs more swiftly and effectively than a full-scale overhaul. His plan doesn't have a cost estimate. Which I guess he can get away with not having a cost estimate.
There's a whole lot of nothing
because,
there.
Well, no, but I mean, if how can you have a cost estimate for I'm going to ask Congress to make changes to things? I don't know. Like, Congress has to pass the bill. So, because the reason why, you know why there is no cost estimate though? Because at no point is he saying the federal government he's not proposing what progressives would call real Medicare for all. He's not saying it's going to cost the government X amount of dollars to take over healthcare. He isn't saying that. He's instead saying, we're going to roll out a series of changes and we're going to pressure companies to work better for people. Listen, I personally like it. Here we go. They ask, what are the weaknesses of the proposal? Now, this is according to Politico. I've heard other weaknesses people have said, but this is according to the Politico article. They say, much of Yang's plan depends on Congress, the negotiation piece in particular. This year has shown how difficult it is to pass even modest healthcare fixes on Capitol Hill. If Yang was president, they're probably... I do fear a world where Yang gets elected in 2020 and how badly do we punish Donald Trump takes over the House and they can't even talk about, like, the House is so obsessed with, now that we're in power, now that Trump's out of office and is the private citizen again, how badly can we screw him and they'll hold up the House again? I don't think that'll happen. I'm just saying, I almost fear a world where it's like Donald Trump could be like 50 years dead and the House doesn't move. Like, Congress can't get anything passed because Donald Trump was president 30 years ago. Like, I almost fear a world where that scene.
Because they're going to start investigating everybody that voted for him.
Or
they're going to be so busy investigating Ivanka and Donald Trump Jr.
But just the idea
and
of, like,
me.
Yeah. I think the criticism of Congress not really passing anything right now has a lot to do with the fact that Congress is currently impeaching the president, which is taking up their time, right? Like, that's why. Anyway, plan doesn't address the tens of millions of people who are uninsured or those who are struggling to pay their insurance plans high premiums, copays, or deductibles. It doesn't directly. However, one thing that people brought up is that it's part of what the freedom dividend's about. It's part of, like, okay, but the government is subsidizing you $1,000 a month, period. Some of that will go to healthcare. Some people will say that is definitely not Medicare for all, because it isn't. The other thing about that, when I'm talking about that, is it is true that he's not addressing, like, specifically these, like, there isn't any, this should be considered a, like, this shouldn't be in, so I'm looking for the buzzword, when you're sick before you get healthcare. My point being is there's none of that specifics in there.
You mean pre-existing conditions?
Pre-existing conditions. There's nothing like that specific. It does seem to me, though, like generally pressuring insurance companies to function differently could address those. Again, though, it's not an awful criticism. And additionally, like you brought up, it's not clear how he would accomplish several of the provisions in his plan. He pledges, for instance, to ensure Americans have access to comprehensive reproductive care, including STI screenings, contraception, and abortion. But he does not indicate what combination of executive orders and legislation that would entail, other than repealing Trump's Title X rule that cut funding to Planned Parenthood, which I would again say to them, yes, I imagine he would basically just set something up in the government and give the government that thing money, and like that's basically what Planned Parenthood was. The government gave them money to outsource some of these services. I think a more just straight up partnership. Like, I think if the government came out and said, we're not going to create this thing exists already, we're going to give them money and they're going to provide X, I think that'd be more likely. Anyway, now that we've gotten through that, the weaknesses, do you agree with the weaknesses card? Anything you see in there?
Well, there's a couple things wrong with this. First off, it
wasn't wrong, or just kind of...
Well, I'm thinking two things simultaneously. First off, it's like Andrew Yang is too smart to put out ideas that he can't follow through on. And that's evidenced by the fact that he says, okay, the plan basically will rely predominantly upon Congress.
Yeah, actually doing things, right? Not just like some actually weird doing things. Concept.
And there's three problems he's fighting. First off, he's too smart to know Medicare for all in the progressive Bernie Sanders way that the public and the activists and the people that are going to be actually knocking doors and volunteering for campaigns that he needs. He's too smart to know he's too smart to know that he knows that would never work. You know what I'm saying? So he can't really espouse that because he's too smart to espouse that. But he wants the activists and he wants to be able to say I have a Medicare for all plan. Okay. However, if you're going to start giving specifics, those specifics will be lambasted and shot down as Republican talking points, just like Elizabeth Warren keeps telling anybody that doesn't have her plan or Bernie's plan that they're just Republican talking points. So he has to speak in euphemisms. I mean, if you look at this, he basically said, as president, I'm going to really be really nice to Congress and work with them and we'll get stuff done. That's basically what he said. So the only thing he can deliver is this euphemistic gobbledygook that says, I know prescription drug prices are high and I think we should bring them down, but he doesn't say how. And then he says, we need to, the few details he can give are ideas that Republicans have tried to get passed through Congress for years, like allowing doctors to cross party lines or state lines, allowing Blue Cross of California to actually offer services in Blue Cross of Nevada or Blue Shield of Nevada being allowed to offer services and coverage plans in Southern California. I do not envy Andrew Yang right now because in the number one polled issue, he's too smart to give the progressive left what it wants to hear. You know what I'm saying? But must have a Medicare for all plan, or else he will go the way of John Delaney at the California GOP meeting where they boot him off the stage.
I remember if it was John Delaney, but I think
that was John Delaney. And he literally said, look, guys, I don't think it's smart to tell the 300 million union members that have negotiated, collectively bargained healthcare plans that they need to get rid of the healthcare plans they've had for 30 years. That's just not smart or good governance. Boo! Yeah, he got booed off stage and it tanked his candidacy before it starts.
Yeah. Well, no, I agree. And we've gone a little long on this without getting too in-depth into the policy. I want to get more depth into the policy one day. But
go for it.
I want to talk about a few more things here. So it's the last and the end of this Politico article, and they bring up something we've talked about a lot already, which is that, like if Bernie Sanders progressive types want to say that this is not Medicare for all, then it's by his definition, it isn't. It's not necessarily a totally crazy thing to say. They also mentioned that pharmaceutical companies are likely to fight tooth and nail. I guess I wanted to highlight a couple things before we moved on this though. Okay. One, and this is just, and I'm not trying. I just pulled a tweet. I was going through some of the comments, and I've seen people more or less speaking roughly something like this. So I want to bring it up. So
Okay.
And
this is a good
I always
tweet.
feel weird showing this stuff, but it's a tweet. It's public. People can see it. This is from,
Great name, by the way.
And again, this is just from
Lump.
a user, but this is just what regular people are saying. Because get back to what I said. Anecdotally, I speak to a lot of people. I ask them what their favorite Yang policy is. A lot of them say Medicare for all. I've seen a sentiment like this. That I'm worried for this campaign with the healthcare rollout. Half of the Yang Gang supports Andrew because he has repeatedly stated he's for Medicare for all. This plan seems to be changing nothing and just improving Medicare as is. My own continued support is tenuous. Again, it's just a Twitter user. It's one individual. This isn't a policymaker anywhere. But I do want to.
But isn't that literally the embodiment of what I just said, where he's too smart to actually embrace Bernie Sanders' Medicare for all? So he's coming up with this hybrid plan that doesn't have the sound bites or the talking points to keep the activists that you need in your campaign happy. Literally, he says, I'm worried about the campaign. Why? Because his Medicare for all plan. It seems to be changing nothing. Yeah, because Andrew Yang knows that it couldn't work.
There is a lot of
my
people,
own continued support is tenuous.
But there's a lot of people who also say I like this plan. I personally am more or less on board with it. Like it's not like doom and gloom. I'm not trying to paint that picture. I'm just trying to show people that this has been a thing where we've kind of seen this coming to a head where he says it's for Medicare for all. It's one of his top policies. He doesn't talk about it a lot. He isn't for the kind of progressive definition of it. And this is one last thing I want to touch on here. Now, full disclosure, this is basically centrist Hillary Clinton propaganda. But it's also why I'm showing it to you guys, because I want to show you guys what the centrist Hillary Clinton shill types are saying. No offense to this individual. It's just, I believe this Neera Tandine is literally worked for Hillary for a while and is a big fan of Hillary and is a big opponent to Bernie Sanders. So
yeah.
Keep that as a grain of salt. But this is what the opponents of Bernie Sanders are saying. This is unrelated. And again, this person does not like Bernie, is a Hillary shill, and is definitely against single payer. But this is what she had to say. She said, what you'll never hear on this website, but is true in this poll and previous ones, building a wall is more popular than single payer healthcare. According to this one Fox News poll, amongst whoever was asked here, these last two selections would be border wall and single payer. And I would say the better way of framing this is that support for single payer and support for the wall are about the same, which is very weird when you think about it. I'm assuming it's different people, but it is interesting, right? That there is that support level. And again, this is just one Fox News poll from somebody who is trying to take Bernie Sanders down. So I'm not saying this is proof of anything.
Yeah,
but I just wanted to highlight the discussion.
Proof, but Fox News does scientific polls, and I can guarantee you that there's a nuance here. I bet you a lot of those people that talked about building the wall is just a symbolic phrase for people that think you need comprehensive immigration reform.
It literally says building a wall along
I know
the
it does,
border.
but I'm saying when most people hear that, I don't think they necessarily think of a physical wall as much as a more stern take on immigration. I really don't think they have faith in the physical wall.
That is a massive assumption and editorialization, so I'm not going to work off of it.
Okay.
It's just according to me, I think this. That's cool.
Okay, I'm just saying that in all my dealings when we talk with citizens, that is the impression I get.
Okay.
So all I'm guessing, and I do admit that this is a guess, is that the reason why that's more popular is because a lot of people think we have enough hospitals for our citizens. If we could revamp our system to be for citizens and not non-citizens, we could cover our bases. So that's why I think there's a strong correlation between those two questions, because there's people out there that are thinking, yes, we need to improve healthcare, but I think our system, if it were just for citizens and not non-citizens for free, would be sufficient.
Like I said, I don't take any. I'm not gonna mind read alleged voters, but my bigger thing is I just want to highlight that's the discussion out there. A lot of people are saying they like what he's rolling out there. A lot of people are saying we like this Andrew Yang thing. There is assault within the. I mean, this is, like I said, this is a Hillary person basically attacking Bernie Sanders. But this line of attack on Bernie Sanders that single payer is not popular is going to keep coming up. It's not going to be the first time. I've heard it before in the past. Single payer isn't popular is going to be an attack line from more centrist types towards the Bernie Sanders progressive wing. And I think Andrew Yang today kind of finally made it known where he stands on this. He's going to be standing in opposition to the progressives on healthcare. I think it's always been, like you said, like, as you've alluded to, we've kind of known that was the case, but he finally kind of came out and, kind of put the policy out there. Like, yes, I do stand in opposition with progressives on Medicare for all. I do not want the more, like I said, kind of like these Medicare for all, like the slogan, like the M4A. People recognize that is not what Andrew Yang's pushing for. So I just thought, I don't know. Sorry. I just wanted to end on that card. And it seems to me that this was the day he finally said, okay, it's out there. I'm going to let you know. And there's going to be people that are upset at that. There's going to be people that are more or less happy with it, I think is what we're saying.
Yeah, and I think this will provide a deep divide in the Yang Gang, because one of the things we've loved about the Yang Gang is how diverse it is. You know what I'm saying? That it's a coalition of far left progressives all the way up to like far right libertarians and everybody in between. But there is also a reality out there that you cannot please everybody. You know what I'm saying? When you speak in generalities, you can please almost everybody. But when demands of details start coming out and the details are revealed, now all of a sudden you start realizing who you're going to piss off and who you're going to keep. And it looks like the far left progressives are the ones that are getting pissed off by Andrew Yang's Medicare for All plan.
Well, I mean, if you wanted single parent Medicare for all with no private insurance,
you're not going to get it.
Not with Andrew Yang, no.
Yep.
But like I said, I don't think that's necessarily the most popular thing either. I think there's some truth to what that Hillary surrogate had to say when she said it's not the most popular thing. I agree. I do not think it's the most popular thing. Polls seem to show up. Anyway.
So hit us. What's next, man? What's next?
We're going to move on next to a story that's been... I wish I had more to tell you guys, a better way of putting it. But this is an interesting story that's been coming out over the last few days. So... this actually goes back to Friday the 13th, right? Friday the 13th, I forgot about that. 7 Democratic candidates threatened to boycott debate over labor dispute. When they say 7, that also means every Democratic candidate that would have been on the stage is boycotting the debate due to a labor dispute.
Wow.
Now, so the candidates are scheduled to meet for the Democratic presidential debate on the Loyola Marymount University campus in Los Angeles on December 19th. That is 3 days from today. Workers represented by Unite Here Local 11 have been picketing since November. Again, since November, though, I have to look at the dates. I'm just trying to say I do not know if the DNC had switched. They'll probably mention this here. Originally, this debate was going to be at UCLA. A labor dispute in UCLA forced them here. I don't know if this UCLA picket. I don't want to impugn anyone here, but I would say...
And none of those candidates can say, hey, guys, get your crap together, because it's union disputes.
Well, yeah.
And so they just bounce from union disputed venue to union disputed venue.
I wonder if this second time, we'll get into more, I wonder if this was the union kind of realizing we have a pretty good bargaining chip coming. Like, they just had to move the debate because of the labor dispute. Maybe we should ramp ours up now.
Okay.
Which is, by the way, for anyone... that is a very good negotiation tactic.
Yeah.
Never. I consider it kind of like a shoot the rodeo moment, you know? It's like, what opportunities befell on us? But anyway, they mention here that basically, here we go. So, union representatives say that Sodexo, the subcontractor that employs the more than 150 university food service workers, abruptly canceled scheduled negotiations. Workers are set to picket Thursday outside the debate venue, which would be the debate. Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren was one of the 7 candidates set to appear on stage. Was the first to signal she would not cross the picket line. And then it just went through Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden, Buttigieg, Andrew Yang. Also, they don't mention
they're
in this article.
all virtue signaling and lying.
Actually, Andrew Yang definitely said it before Pete Buttigieg. Not really. It just...
There's no way that was the first thought that came through Elizabeth Warren's head. She's thinking, crap, I need to get on the debate stage. I need to differentiate myself from the other candidates. I'm slipping in the polls. I need to show America that I can be a better leader. And crap, these guys can't get their act together. Their union dispute is preventing me from getting on a debate stage. Now, she can't go out and say that. So she organizes this flowery wording saying, I would never want to stand in the way of some kind of union negotiation. That's a virtue signal. And it seems inauthentic, and that's why people don't think she's an authentic candidate.
I have to apologize. I was untruthful. Cardin spent the last week learning how to read minds with with gypsies, I guess. Or not, no offense. Yeah, I mean, some
they're not gypsies, they're Eastern Romanians.
Some magical person taught you how to read minds, I guess, because you've just been reading them all morning, man.
It does not, make a comment.
You know how powerful Cardin's mind reading is? He could read something on paper and just, boom, I know what you think. I'm in your brain. Anyway, I want to get to something, because it is true that there is a debate going on. There will be picketing outside of the venue on the date of the debate. So obviously people are reaching out to the DNC and saying every candidate said they will not be speaking what's going on. So as far as I know, there's been no actual communication back and forth. There's a statement that has been released by the DNC's communication director. campus president, I believe it's Hinojosa, said in a statement that the committee in the university had learned about the issue on Friday and is working to find. This is their statement. While LMU is not a party to the negotiations between Sodexo and Unite Here Local 11, Tom Perez would absolutely not cross a picket line and would never expect our candidates to either. We are working with all stakeholders to find an acceptable resolution that meets their needs and is consistent with our values and will enable us to proceed as scheduled with next week's debate. So proceed as scheduled is 3 days from now, and they haven't announced where the debate's going to be. Possible? I have to imagine you're working with Secret Service, security. You're working with a lot. You're working with the people that were very pleased at LMU to have a debate hosted on their venue. You're working with a lot of people here.
Well, that's a coup for LMU, too. I don't think they've had a political debate before.
That's what I mean. They don't want to lose this debate. And this is something that they actually don't really mention. They go through and they read the statement from both the union and from Sodexo, and they go through and talk more. This is what I kind of wanted to highlight. I wanted to bring this up. And again, just go back to... Again, my stance on this is more power to them, but here we go. This is the official statement from LMU. This is from the LMU newsroom. Official statement to be released on Friday when this hullabaloo started. LMU is not a party to the negotiations between Sodexo and Unite Here Local. The university is encouraged and continues to encourage Sodexo to resolve issues raised by Local 11. Earlier today, LMU asked Sodexo to meet with Local 11 next week to advance negotiations and solutions. LMU is not an agent nor a joint employer of Sodexo, nor are the Sodexo employees assigned to our campus. LMU is proud to host the DNC debate and is committed to ensuring the university is a rewarding place to learn, live, and work.
Cool.
It seems to me that even though the DNC is on, according to the DNC statement, what I'm reading right now, I'm trying to give you guys more up-to-date information. What I found is the university, last statement, they're operating under the impression they're holding the debate, I guess. And it looks like the last statement from the DNC is they're going to move it. It's in 3 days. So I don't know what's actually going to happen here, but the debate's coming up soon. I don't have a whole lot of public information. If we get updates, I'll let you guys know later, but very interesting scenario.
So what's your bet?
Very interesting scenario going on here.
You say I'm a mind reader. I know that you are an odds man and a gambler.
I'm a betting man.
I think they're the same thing because all betting is trying to read people's minds.
No.
So do you bet will it? I think the union's going to win, and they're going to take it all the way to the mat, all the way to the day before, and that everybody's going to be hoping that it works out. And Loyola Marymount, well, not Loyola, but the people negotiating with the union will ultimately buckle because they do not want to lose they do not want to lose the debate and the prestige of having the debate there.
I mean, honestly, it unfortunately just like depends on a few things. I really have no idea like I said, I don't know the future. My guess would be, like I said, I think the union here kind of played their cards. I think they're going to win. I think they are. Although here's the other thing though, just getting into strategy elements of it again. I don't know if the DNC moves the debate, the labor unions lose their leverage as well because the LMU already lost the debate. Like what leverage do they have left? Yeah. So I do wonder what would happen. I think the absolute best case scenario here is that in the next 2 or 3 days, some agreements made between Sodexo and Local 11. And that is because you don't have to move the venue, no more security headaches, no more, hold on a minute, we have nothing to do with this. Why are you taking the debate away from us? I think the DNC might, but even then, I have no idea what's going to do. My larger point is this is a very weird situation because I don't know, maybe I'm underestimating the DNC, but moving a presidential debate within a city in 3 days when the person you're taking the debate from technically has no control over the reason why you're moving the debate from them sounds like a bureaucratic political nightmare to me.
Okay.
Because then how do you decide who gets it? I don't know. I'm not going to get into too much. I just think that this is a very weird thing going on because we have, like I said, every Democrat's like, I'm not going to be there. The DNC said, well, we're moving it. And the school said, we have nothing to do with this as far as we know it's going as planned. I have no idea what's going on. I wish I could tell you guys more. However, I also wish I could tell you guys that's the end of the drama surrounding the debates.
But
it definitely isn't. So top Democrat candidates asked the DNC to allow more candidates to participate in debates. Sort of. Senator Cory Booker and other 2020 candidates have asked that the rules be relaxed to foster greater diversity in the party's final primary stages. 9 Democratic presidential candidates sent a letter to the Democratic National Committee Saturday urging the party to ease the qualification requirements for upcoming debates, highlighting tensions within the party over the decline of candidates of color in a primary field once heralded for being the most diverse in U.S. history. They keep going and say, to make the stage for a Democratic debate or December debate, which most candidates have pledged to boycott over a labor dispute, the party required candidates to receive at least 4% in DNC-approved polls and have at least 200,000 individual campaign donors. The requirements for a debate invitation have grown more stringent as the primaries progressed. It is not yet clear whether next year's debates will have tougher requirements for participation. Despite this uncertainty, the letter, spearheaded by Cory Booker, who, by the way, again, more power to him, this is Cory Booker's issue he's running on, is that the DNC feels not diverse enough. It reminds me of when Beto kind of was falling out of the race and Beto really latched on to the gun control thing because that happened in his home state.
Yeah.
It seems like Cory Booker realized he was falling out of the race. He missed the debate and he found his thing to latch on to. More power to him. He found a message, but sorry, Cory. Having a moan about the fact that you didn't meet the requirements. You know a person of color.
It's a tough pill to swallow, but swallow it, bro.
But do you know a person of color with a legit claim they were screwed by this system? Is Tulsi Gabbard. And yeah. I'm assuming she signed the letter, but you're saying that she hasn't turned her campaign into this. But anyway, and again, more power to Cory Booker. When your campaign is struggling, you got to find some justification. This is a pretty good one for him. However, he argues that the criteria have unnecessarily and artificially narrowed the diverse pool of presidential candidates before voters have had a chance to be heard, the letter reads. As a result, candidates who have proven both their viability and their commitment to the Democratic Party are being prematurely cut out of the nominating contest before many voters have even tuned in, much less made their decision. So should the Democratic debate scheduled for next Thursday proceed as planned, which again, it might not even, it will feature 7 of the 15 candidates left in the race. Despite the top candidates signaling support for the rule changes, the DNC won't budge. This is where I want to get to the DNC's response. The DNC, by the way, is not having this for 1 second. So,
well, can I just say something before you talk about what the DNC's response is? This was completely predictable in my mind. And here's the reason why. We're in a very unique situation in this debate where the front runner, Joe Biden, wants as much chaos on stage with the minor candidates as possible, because when there's chaos, people will they'll fall back on a safe candidate. And Joe Biden's number one distinction as a candidate is, hey, I was Obama's guy. You know what I'm saying? I'm the closest thing you got to the Obama legacy. Sure, I may have my problems, but look at this experience. And people are like, oh, I recognize that name, and the world didn't explode when he was vice president. So sure, I'll go with Biden. So the guys on top want there to be as many candidates on stage as possible because that creates chaos. And then the minor candidates who aren't hitting these thresholds, Cody, they all want their last chance to attack Biden. They want their last chance to attack the person on their left or the person on the right and have that Tulsi Gabbard, Kamala kept people in jail for nonviolent crimes moment, you know? And so literally every single person on stage benefits from there being pure chaos in the short term, while none of them recognize that in the long term, you just gave Donald Trump the single biggest gift he could ever need in 2020, a chaotic Democratic field that looks at best disorganized, at worst sheer chaos. You know what I'm saying? So this I kind of saw a mile away only because it benefits everybody to have more people on stage.
Well, I'm sorry. I was trying to find the article in particular. There's been, and I'll show you guys.
Well, you think I'm wrong or what?
A little bit, yeah. No, but because I do. I think what we're seeing here is actually something different. I actually think you got things backwards a little bit. While I do agree a little bit that the idea of like the more people on stage, less I have to talk. So first things first. I'm going to give you guys the DNC.
It benefits
response.
Joe Biden.
No, the DNC's response is this. The DNC has led a fair and transparent process and even told campaigns almost a year ago that the qualification criteria would go up later in the year. Not one campaign objected. The DNC will not change the threshold for any one candidate and will not revert back to 2 consecutive nights with more than a dozen candidates. By the way, the emphasis is my own. I think if this was more, I think this part right here, where is it? This line would be in bold, italics, and like 50-point font,
Yeah.
We will not revert
Yes.
back to 2 consecutive nights and more. They are serious about this, and the reason why, I'll try to find the article in the description. When they had those 2 nights debates, front runners were raising hell behind the scenes. They were saying, "Are you kidding me? This is ridiculous." I believe one of the quotes from a top aide was, "I'm trying to run a campaign here. I don't even know what night the debate's on." That was what the DNC was hearing when they had a larger field. Another DNC official said, multiple campaigns have privately signaled to the DNC their frustration with the large debate stage and asked them to hold the line. By the way, did I tell you that every candidate that's going to be in the debate stage signed the letter asking them to increase? So I do agree. This is disingenuous by people who signed that letter. Because first of all, what does this mean for a candidate like Andrew
Wait,
Yang?
you said I can't read minds and say that Elizabeth Warren was being
I'm not reading mine.
disingenuous.
My evidence is DNC officials saying that campaigns who maybe they're speaking about what? No, everyone signed the letter. They're saying that campaigns, I'm assuming they're speaking of campaigns who signed that letter, are privately saying, hold the line, don't change anything. They're saying, I'll sign the letter because I got Tom Perez's ear and I could tell him, don't you dare change a thing. Stick to your guns. Because, dude, do you think if the DNC...
Well, and if they don't virtue signal, they look like they're being exclusionary in the party of inclusion.
That's your word of the day, virtue signal. If they're so concerned about that, why would the DNC come out and just slam the door and say, they knew about this, nobody objected, we're not budging an inch? That's how interested in virtue signaling the DNC is right now. We don't care. Kick sand or kick rocks. That was basically...
Well, they can say that to their candidates.
I can sum up their response as kick rocks. That's what they're telling people.
Yeah, which is awesome.
They're basically saying our qualification... This was... By the way, I omitted the most get out of here line of it. Our qualification criteria is extremely low and reflects where we are in the race. They're basically saying, get out of here, man. If you didn't qualify now, you think we're going to save you? You're done. Get out. It's basically the answer from DNC.
Isn't that a dig, too,
it's
though?
Crazy, man.
Our qualification criteria is extremely low.
It's, of course, a dig. It's rude. You know what it's saying? It's saying, Booker, stop it. Hold on. When that letter was penned, when that letter was signed by every candidate, it was signed by every candidate, right?
Begone, thou peasants.
Wait, isn't it interesting the DNC's response was, we will not change the threshold for any one candidate. Was that the ask? Did people say we must change these thresholds for one candidate? Or are they referencing Cory Booker spearheading this whole drama? Are they saying, Cory Booker, stop calling the DNC prejudiced? Because
I don't know. I can't read minds, Cody.
No, neither can I. But I'm not reading minds. I'm reading words. Why would they say any one candidate? There's only one candidate who is being mentioned. You know what? Speaking of reading words here, you'll notice that maybe they're talking about Julian Castro. My point being is, Julian Castro and Cory Booker, after missing out in debate, became very, very vocal about this. And now we have the DNC releasing a statement saying that we're not going to change this for any one person. Are they speaking of Marianne Williamson? Is she saying that we must change the rules? They could be speaking of Tulsi Gabbard, which is a good point. I'm going to bring that up. Tulsi Gabbard, as I said, if the rules were a little bit different, would be in the debate stage. And by a little bit different, I mean if polls conducted by universities with the largest publication in the Northeast are showing that Tulsi Gabbard's at 6%. If they counted those polls, she'd be in. They're not counting those polls, so that could be a good point. I mean, fair. I can't read minds either. They could just be saying that. It's just weird to me when there's a couple specific candidates in particular that are championing this. The DNC says we're not changing this for any one person. It's like, well, the letter was penned by one person, signed by many. That's my point. I think that's the response we're seeing here from the DNC.
Either way, I do agree with you.
By the way, do you know who agrees with me on this as well?
Who?
Politico. The Booker campaign was the driving force behind the effort to convince other campaigns to sign, according to several presidential campaiign operatives familiar with the discussion. Also, because I didn't think it was weird when I heard Andrew Yang signed on to the letter, because I was like, isn't that like not good for Andrew Yang to split his talking time with more people? But him and Booker are friends. I could also see if Cory Booker calls him and says, hey, man, will you support me on this? I think Andrew probably would say, of course I'll support you on this. Even though, again, Cory Booker, by the way, has been going on about this whole there's no diversity in the stage, and Andrew Yang, well, it's like, well.
So Asians don't count as diversity.
Again, that's the second part of this whole thing, which has made it a mess. And again, by the way, guys, remember, the debate that's these people, all these 7 candidates qualified for might not happen or might be postponed or who knows what. It might go on as planned. Right now, I'm finding no public information that's been released of what's going to happen with it. All a bunch of crazy stuff going on with the debates. I mean,
so this debate on the candidate side is a debacle between the DNC and the actual candidates not being able to get their act together. On the venue side, it's an absolute debacle. And it's how many days away?
3 as of recording. 3 full
So,
days. So
as
Tuesday,
of recording,
Wednesday,
we've
Thursday.
got 72 hours to figure out how many candidates are going to actually be on stage, where it's going to be,
Well, no,
and whether or not the food service people are going to show up.
No, sorry. For this debate, the candidates are set. That's one last thing.
Yes.
No, but the last point of data, it's a good segue into this. And I'll just put it on the screen if you want to just keep talking. But these are the other announced debates. January 14th, February 7th, February 19th, February 25th. It has not been announced for these debates what the qualifications will constrict to, if they will. If they'll, because it seems to me the DNC statement, they almost feel like they can maintain the same requirements and be like, you guys aren't going to get in. Like we can keep the requirements and it's not going to change much. So that's it. The biggest thing I wanted to show, because I remember, again, I apologize, I couldn't bring the article up right now to show you guys. It was from months ago. It was like a business article, but this sentiment right here, that behind the scenes, privately, major campaigns are saying, we do not, like I said, when they had all 12 candidates on stage in one night, and we were trying to figure out, why would they have all 12 on one night? That's too many. Wouldn't it be nice to have 2 nights of 6 people? No. Because I don't know if it was Biden, I don't know if it was Warren, but top campaigns are like, we are not doing this nonsense. We do not want a huge field. We want one night as few people as possible is what they're pushing for.
So if you were
one night as few as possible, and the DNC, again, sorry, I just wanted to get back to the other thing in that statement.
Well, my
that really
last
stood
question
out
for
was
you,
the
just
fact
before
that-
we go to the next segment, is just, if you and I were role playing, okay, and I, in a Boomer King voice, were to be the DNC and speak in iambic pentameter, semi-Shakespearean, would I say, "Begone, thou peasants"? Would I say, "Riffraff"? What? How would you make colloquial their phrase that we're not lowering our would you call them urchins? What would you say?
No, they're just. I think they're saying, "Look, you guys are gonna have to take this L, man. It's over.
Take the L. That would be the takest thou the L.
Yeah, it's over, man. Because I mean, it's not over by the way. Because I don't think Tulsi should drop out because she missed the debate. Because I think if the rules were different for one particular person, she would have been in, right? But I do think the DNC is saying, if your response to not being able to drum up enough support from our voter base is to call us prejudiced, you got problems, man. I think the DNC is saying, like, look, we've done everything we can. We can't make people choose you in polls.
Yeah.
Because that is what it came down to.
Look at them. They're all turning into conservatives.
We can't make people like you, is what they're saying. And, and you turning around and accusing us of being responsible for this doesn't help us at all. Because, by the way, someone pointed out, a woman of color did qualify for the debate stage. She just dropped out. I mean,
she's just not approved.
No. Kamala would have been on the debate stage, but she dropped out of the election. Like this notion that the Democratic voter base is just so prejudiced, and the DNC is so prejudiced, they're barring people of color, is a little bit crap. Because Andrew Yang is on the stage, and Kamala had qualified for the debate stage like a month out, and she just dropped out of the election because it wasn't going anywhere. And I think also, I almost want to feel. This is the last thing I'll touch on. The Kamala dropout almost did feel a little bit of like a message to candidates like Andrew Yang, by the way, of like, if you're below this line, you should be dropping out. I feel like that was their hope. They were hoping when Kamala bowed out, you would see other people under that Kamala line bow out and they could get into 2020 stretch run with a 4-person frontrunnership. They don't want these people in here. And as someone else pointed out, again, the very last thing, if they did change the qualifications at all, there is, but like, would they change the donor threshold for Bloomberg? Who knows? I think it's what the DNC wants to say. We're happy with this system. It's not perfect, but dude, like,
but can you not,
like, some of you guys, like,
do you not see the irony in this, Cody? That literally the argument of the DNC is that, hey, we run a meritocracy here. And when you complain that we don't have enough POCs or have enough diversity on stage, it's because you're not reaching the points of meritocracy here.
No, because that's ultimately everything's always a meritocracy. I know
it's like the classic left versus right argument, but is now happening in the actual race of who gets onto the debate stage, and these harsh realities are showing up. Just like you said, I'm sorry, we can't get people to like you in polls.
No, I mean,
like we've done everything we can.
Yeah, and like I said, Tulsi kind of had a legit argument. Tulsi had multiple polls above 6% that just weren't being counted. I don't really recall that being the case for specifically Booker and Castro, who, like I said, the people kind of spearheading. It's not like
they haven't had breakout performances in areas that should have been counted.
Yeah, like if I'm looking at these polls and it's like they're hitting 5, 6, 4, and there's none of those polls count, I'd be like, this is a little crap. But for the most part, it's not like that. So I mean, I don't ever want to side with the DNC. I think they're a pretty bad organization. My favorite is when the DNC in a courtroom argued they have no responsibility to actually have fair and transparent election. That was crazy. By the way, I mean, I don't have to pull it up. That's what the DNC argued in court. It was merely political rhetoric that their elections were fair. Crazy stuff, man. I'm no fans of this organization. However,
the Supreme
their
Court
statement
also
is consistent.
the Supreme Court also said, though, that their promise of having a fair and open primary was equivalent to that of a campaign promise, one that doesn't have to be held.
Yes, that's what they argued in court. They said it was merely political rhetoric. That was the argument of the court. So this is by no means an organization to champion. But now, there's a couple things here. We've already went really long. At the very end here, guys, I just wanted to kind of highlight a couple of fun stories that have come up over the last few days that I wanted to talk about here.
Wow, this is a big one. We made a video of this kind of teasing it 2 weeks ago. And to see this headline, it makes you think.
A little until you read the story. But
yeah,
I'm saying with the extra data, with everything I know in the context, it means more than the letting on here. But anyway, here's a headline. Yang says he would consider offering to be Biden's VP. Now, what he actually said in an interview, it's a quote from Andrew Yang. Quote, he actually came to me, he being Joe Biden, came to me and said he's very concerned about the fourth industrial revolution and that if we automate away the jobs, it's going to be a fundamental threat to the middle class. And that made me really excited because I was like, wow, Joe is listening. Yang told Yahoo News in an interview being published Monday. Not only is that something that happened, that is something that's been going on not only recently, I want to say like the second debate, maybe even the first. I mean, back when Andrew Yang really was still building up his name recognition in his primary, he had said that privately he was surprised that he said the first time Joe Biden said something, he thought Joe was just trying to do there's like always Tom Cruise stories, so Tom Cruise gets prepped on everyone's life to be more personable, I guess. A lot of famous people do that. They have their assistant, what's his kid's name? Where do they go to school? And then you just, he thought it was like that. And then he was like, he realized the second or third time Joe Biden kept talking. He's like, oh, Joe Biden. And you can see him say now, Joe's really listening. Like this wasn't, Andrew Yang, you're the technology guy, right? It was more of like I didn't hear what you're saying about the fourth industrial revolution stuff. And he even went on a late night show a couple months ago and said Joe Biden said this. So because the reason why I'm bringing all this up is because Yang's comments on being a running mate are this. He said, certainly I want to be the nominee myself, but if I'm part of the team, I'll do my part for sure. If any of the candidates prevail and ask me to be their running mate, of course I would take a very long, hard look at it. What they tried to set up here, it's a short article. They don't have a lot of stuff here. He goes on to say, I share text messages with a half dozen other candidates. I'd work with many of them, and as president, I can't wait to enlist many of them to join my cabinet. It's just Joe Biden has been constantly coming back to Andrew Yang with this message, and he's bringing it up again. And I just think it is worth noting that if Andrew Yang is open to being a VP, as of today, the only person I could see winning the nomination and wanting him as a VP would be Joe Biden. So I think it's interesting.
Okay.
Him referencing it. Just because I thought it was funny. Yang saying, like I said, the first few times Joe Biden came to him and said this stuff, he's like, whatever, he's just being nice. And then I think now we're seeing Andrew saying, no, like Joe Biden's on board with me on this stuff. Like, he's hearing what I'm saying because I'm saying the right things. I mean, recently Andrew Yang was asked in an interview, would he rather be president or see UBI get passed? And he said he'd rather see UBI get passed and not be president. So I think Yang's fighting more.
That's significant.
He's pushing more for principle than policy. And I think he's seeing if Biden's going to come to him and say, the stuff you're pushing for, I want to bring that into my administration.
That's like George Washington
could be
stuff
open
right
to.
there.
Yeah. Well, also, that's what he said in an interview once, right? No offense. I'm just saying, people say a lot of stuff. I do imagine that Andrew Yang would rather have UBI pass than be president. I believe him on that one.
Yes.
So that was one thing. There's another article
Are you reading his mind?
The Examiner. No, that's why I said believe. I don't know, though.
What's next? Hit us, Cody.
Just more from the Examiner I wanted to highlight here. Just that the same comments were... here we go. They left this out, but he said that he mentions that he's had the most interactions with Joe of any of the candidates, especially when it comes to like his ideas. Him and Booker seem to be friends, but like he says, I've had the most interactions with Joe. He actually came to me and he's very concerned. Like, just want to add that context there. Because a lot of people are saying, well, he doesn't say he actually would be Biden's VP anywhere in this, because he doesn't. However, the context here is that Joe Biden has came to him privately multiple times and expressed interest in his platforms, and that's kind of the tie-in there. This next one, actually, I got some more, I don't know if I want to say boring stuff, but I got a story I want to just touch. This is an old story now, but we actually covered so I'll get into it. So Alyssa Milano and Terry Hatcher were going to co-host a fundraiser for Andrew Yang in Los Angeles.
Big deal. We made a whole entire video on this.
Alyssa Milano backed out of it, saying the campaign does not address sexual misconduct appropriately.
Ooh.
In a tweet statement, she says she's made the difficult statement to withdraw. This is old news now from last week. This is some of the newer stuff that came out, and I just thought, this is what's going around. I wanted to discuss it. So, Andrew Yang comes back out a couple days ago, refutes it. Says her facts are wrong. But it refutes the activist allegations of misconduct. The actual quote is, here we go. So during a sit-down interview with Yahoo News, Yang said that he and his team conducted an internal investigation on the staffer allegedly involved and found no evidence of anything sexual in nature. The staffer was dismissed instead for management problems. We take any allegation of misconduct very seriously. We investigated as soon as we had any indication something was amiss, and the person that was accused, we found they had not done anything sexual in nature, but we decided to dismiss the worker because there had been other sensually management problems. They go on to mention her pulling out of it, and then I think down here, here we go. Yang maintains that her assertions are incorrect. Alyssa's facts are wrong in terms of us somehow not responding quickly. Alyssa and I have had a number of contacts over the last number of days and weeks, and she just said, like, hey, I hope you understand my perspective on this. And I said, of course. So why I'm bringing that up now is because this was getting an old article from TMZ has been getting dug up and passed around a little bit. It is interesting. So article from TMZ dated back to October, saying Pete Buttigieg celeb donations keep pouring in. Why this article has been getting brought up again is because you'll notice down here that Alyssa Milano is leading the way for Mayor Pete for throwing down a little over $3,000 in the last quarter.
Oh, wow.
So people are throwing that up. In Alyssa Milano's defense, however, though. So I wanted to get into this. I've seen a lot of people slamming her for this and saying, see, look, she just was looking for some reason. She doesn't like Yang. Alyssa Milano's been on record that she'll raise money for any candidate. And like this is a Fox News article, probably just meant to make her like look at her. Like, this is what she's been saying the whole time. I'm not going to hold against her donating to Pete Buttigieg. Alyssa Milano, Dems should elect the entire 2020 field and make Michelle Obama Secretary of State. She's probably given a lot of money to multiple Democrats running.
Okay, that's fair.
And here's the big quote from her down here. She instead called on Democratic candidates to put their egos aside and effectively allow Kamala Harris and Joe Biden to serve as the party's ticket for 2020. I do not think that Alyssa Milano backed out because she's some secret Pete Buttigieg operative who's trying to tank the Yang campaign. I think, as she said, she had a certain perspective on what she heard, and that was her reasoning. I have no reason to defend this individual. I'm just saying that I remember Alyssa Milano has been remarkably consistent this entire cycle with, I will raise money for anyone, I will give money to anyone, I don't care, I just want a Democrat to win. That has been her statement the whole time.
Well, I find it interesting that she said...
I'm not going to get on too much for this.
She said for the other Democratic candidates to put their egos aside and let Kamala and Joe Biden run.
Yeah.
Now, of all the people that Alyssa Milano would say the entire 14-person field needs to get out of the way for, what about Kamala and Joe Biden make it so that Alyssa Milano thinks that's a winning ticket?
They were like the biggest app. Like, if you're looking at this kind of like objectively and pragmatically, they seemed like
I am. Kamala couldn't make it till now.
No, but I think
so what does she bring to Joe Biden?
The word on the street in the DNC is that it's Biden with Harris as a VP. I've got a better point for you. Would Mike Pence have ever won a presidential election? You know, would Joe Biden even have won an election?
I think who you choose as your VP is huge. Barack Obama himself said his most astute political decision was choosing Joe Biden as his vice presidential running candidate.
I agree, but I don't think Joe Biden's greatest strength was that he was a threat to Donald. My larger point is he was not a threat to taking the White House from Obama. You don't want a VP who's a threat and could beat you in a primary. You want a VP who's not going to have any chance of beating you in a primary. That's what you want as your VP, your second. You don't want your seconds to be someone who was this close to beating you. It's not good. It's hard to feel secure.
I don't know. I think you'd want to try and get as much outreach as possible. No. Like, if you could collect all the Bernie bros.
Didn't we literally stop having the second place person serve as VP, mostly because of party differences.
True. That's
but
true.
It's because you want your VP to be someone who is likable. Do you know who had
assistant principal?
Do you know who had an adversarial vice president?
Who had an adversarial vice president?
Yes. Who allegedly was
in modern
yeah,
or
no. He was allegedly by some alleged that he was actively working to primary the president in the upcoming election.
Couldn't have been Gerald Ford.
It was John F. Kennedy.
John F. Kennedy.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm blanking on the guy's name. But yes, there was the reason being was, I don't know, and I don't want to get too far into this, but why Joe Biden and Kamala Harris would be weighed as a ticket. I'm just saying, generally speaking, you don't want your VP to be someone who's very threatening to you. You don't want your VP to be someone who people might say, maybe we could use him as president. So I think that might be one of the reasons why Joe Biden would like Kamala Harris, because you want a VP, but people more or less like-ish and are on board with. Now, I agree. I don't find Kamala likable. I just think that's her logic. That's what I'm saying. So,
okay.
At the risk of running way too long, we're only going to have a few seconds to talk about this last thing, but I had to get it in here.
Yes!
Andrew Yang.
This is the most important segment of the day. Anything that legalizes psilocybin, okay, this is actually a big thing for me. I've never done magic mushrooms, but this is important stuff. So, ladies and gentlemen, you need to pay attention. Cody, take it away.
Well, just very quickly, Andrew Yang wants to make psychedelic mushrooms more freely available. Psychedelic and psilocybin pretty much interchangeable. Democratic presidential candidate Andrew Yang says the U.S. should loosen its ban on psychedelic mushrooms. We should explore making psilocybin mushrooms legal for medical and therapeutic use, particularly for veterans, the 2020 contender tweeted on Saturday after meeting with a military veteran in Iowa who told him the psychedelic substance is the only treatment he found effective for his depression upon returning home.
This is a legitimate argument. I got to tell you, I think this is Andrew Yang's ploy just to get back on the Joe Rogan podcast.
One second. Let me finish. On Sunday, Yang followed up by quote tweeting a CNN article about a study suggesting that psilocybin can be safely administered as a treatment for depression. That's all I want to get out, is that this is in context with there being studies coming out talking about psilocybin being increased as a use for medicinal uses. That was he spoke with a veteran, but it's also in conjunction with this study and this research becoming more and more mainstream. It didn't fall out of the sky. It didn't wake up one day.
Well, psilocybin gets so effectively metabolized. And there's been 3 studies that are extremely interesting. You need to look at an interview that Joe Rogan actually did with John Hancock, I think was his name. And I actually read these studies. And it's a lot more effective than some of these synthesized, unnatural antidepressants people have. And when asked about the significance of the experience that people had in psilocybin, many of them said, okay, it got rid of my depression because it gave me a paradigm shift. Okay. And in all 3 surveys, the majority of the people said that it was such a significant trip, their psilocybin trip, that improved their life so drastically that in all 3, it was in the top 10 experiences of their entire life. For the vast majority, in the top 3 experiences of their entire life, akin to the birth of their first child. All right, I want to try this stuff. You have no idea.
Well, hey, go to Denver.
Yeah, they just
or Oakland.
Denver and Oakland. Oakland's passed a non-enforcement, meaning basically kind of like a sanctuary city decriminalization type of thing. Yeah. And so did Denver. Yeah. And those things grow everywhere in California. We got them in the San Gabriel Mountains over here.
Yeah, it's crazy.
We got them all up and down.
Yeah, you can just pluck them on the ground.
Big Pharma is afraid of psilocybin more than they are of... Big Pharma is more afraid of psilocybin than they are of legal marijuana, man.
No, for sure. I mean, because I don't want to get too far into it. There's been similar research and study done into pure MDMA. Not ecstasy, but actual MDMA, the comment behind it, with similar results. And again, I'd imagine it'd be threatening to people who sell, just when they show you a commercial for this stuff, listen to the side effects and then ask yourself, could psilocybin mushrooms be that much worse than this? Are these mushrooms going to make me want to do all these things? I don't know. So
I administered daily medical marijuana to my daughter, and it saved her life. And when people would look at me sideways, I'd say, do you know what continual use over a 7-month period of liquid morphine does to you?
Dude,
do you know what Dilaudid, Norco, and all of these synthetic opioids do to you?
Last thing I want to touch on before I'll be done is there's Adderall, widely prescribed. Adderall, your body perceives it essentially as methamphetamine, and it was developed in the 1980s as a dietary pill. It was a weight loss supplement.
Yes.
So I would argue that, yes, we do have this interesting thing where if it comes in those translucent orange bottles and it's got a label on it, whatever's in there must be okay. And I do think that is interesting that I think, if they package psilocybin in little pill forms and little things, no one would even question it. You could even call it psilocybin. No one question it.
If Pfizer grew psilocybin,
we would love it. There seems to be this idea that meth that was developed in the 80s for weight loss for women in Europe, I'll give that to my 12-year-old. But that is functionally what happens. So I don't want to get too far into all this stuff. I just thought that was a little roundup, some of the interesting Andrew Yang and just general primary news. Like I said, a lot of crazy stuff going on in the debates. Is the debate going to happen? Are they going to... the DNC is telling people to go pound sand, basically. Like, we're not changing a thing for you guys. Specifically Cory Booker, if I'm reading into it correctly. Yeah. So, and then we get into even more. That's everything for today, guys. We will be back tomorrow with more. I guess it's a good time to mention it. We were missing the last week. Are we going to
be back tomorrow with psilocybin? Imagine what we would say on a live stream with psilocybin.
I wouldn't do one. But I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't want to do it. But anyway...
Wait, you're always the one that's like, yay, we're going to Vegas. And I'm the prude that doesn't drink or smoke.
It doesn't mean I want to do mushrooms on camera, man. That sounds fun to me.
How is it that the Mormon guy that doesn't do anything is like down with the magic mushrooms? And Cody's like, heck no, I ain't touching it.
I'm not doing it on camera. Anyway, that's it. I'm done. Anything from you, Carden?
No. Just make sure that a couple things to say. Make sure you subscribe to us on Twitter, because that's how we reach out to a lot of people, make a lot of our announcements. Also, if you want to contribute to the channel, there's a PayPal link in the description. And call us and leave a voicemail with your questions. We love responding to your voicemails, especially when we do our live streams on Tuesdays and Thursdays. That seems to be our most popular day. That's not exact set schedule, okay? So don't quote us.
Keep ours open 2020 for more stuff.
Yeah, exactly. By Jan 1, 2020, we are going to be doing a much more... not cohesive, but I would say kind of etched in stone, a lot more consistent live stream schedule. So anyway, love having you guys here. Like, share, subscribe if you can. This is Problem Solver Politics, and we will see you in the next video.